This is the story of how I turned $500 into $1 million in 1 year at the age of 23, and I've never shared this before. I've crafted the video so that by the end of it, you'll understand the tactics that worked for me in making this first million, as well as a few big mindset shifts that took my whole life that resulted in me getting lucky for the first time, and then again and again and again after that. So the goal here is to motivate people and to give them actionable advice that they can apply to their own lives. I studied mathematics at university, and I was on track to become a consultant or a banker. A pretty typical route, until my friend came to me with an idea. He said, "Hey, Karush, you're really good with numbers. I've got an idea for a business." I was bored and said yes, and just like that, I started my first business at university. And it actually went pretty well. It only lasted 4 or 5 months and didn't make anywhere close to $1 million, but it gave me something far more valuable than money. I got the first mindset shift that would affect me for the rest of my life. My previous belief was that to become successful, you have to find a traditional job, make money, and work your way up that ladder. But after this, I realized that opportunity is everywhere. There are countless ways to make money, and all you have to do is go out there into the world and provide value to someone. And when you realize this, you start looking for opportunity everywhere. What a lot of people do is just demonize money, rich people, or corporations. But once you realize that the opportunity is just out there for your taking, you start to constantly think about money. When you're traveling and you see a store, you wonder why that store is where it is, how they make money, whether or not they get customers, what they do to keep customers. When you're traveling and you meet someone and they seem well off, you can talk to them, figure out how they made their money. More often than not, it's not just through that corporate route. And you can learn something from them and potentially apply it yourself. This makes you more likely to spot opportunities that people will later then call you lucky for. The lucky idea is a lot more likely to come to you if you are looking for it actively. So I found entrepreneurship, and it sounded way better than having to wake up every day, go to work from 9 to 5, be told what to wear and what to do, and I couldn't resist. But what I didn't know is that entrepreneurship has its own misery, its own prisons, and we'll get to that. So after university, I kept my entrepreneurial journey going, always on the lookout for opportunity, but also spent a lot of the money I made, which wasn't much, but enough to go travel and experience the world a little bit. The travel was fun for a bit, but it never truly felt right because financially, I kept moving backwards every time I travel. I really needed to focus, otherwise I'm always going to be living paycheck to paycheck or business opportunity to business opportunity. See, I tried to start a travel company. That failed miserably, cost me thousands of dollars and hundreds of hours wasted. I started a marble and granite business. I did property salvaging. I ran a matched betting operation and did several other things. And some of them worked out, made a bit of money. None of them lasted very long, and most of them failed miserably. While I was able to make decent amounts of money, I wasn't building real skills, and I had no idea how to scale a business outside of that first deal or opportunity that I'd find. This meant that every time an opportunity ended, I'd be stuck there with anxiety trying to figure out how to make money next. On social media, it's cool to say 9 to 5 jobs are a prison or something you don't want to do, but they are freeing in many ways. You have security and predictability. You know all you have to do is show up and you're likely to get paid. There's a freedom in the ability to predict your finances and plan your life around it. Entrepreneurship has its own prison. I was always anxious about where money would come from next, and I'd really sit there and wonder sometimes, did I mess up? Should I have gone and got a traditional job? Should I go and get a traditional job? I wanted to escape, and I decided to do another trip, and this time I went to Uganda, and I was climbing a mountain with a friend, and it was there on top of the mountain. It was a beautiful, amazing journey that I really realized something needed to change, and I couldn't continue living like this. I wanted to accomplish something meaningful with my life, and the current trajectory I was on was just not taking me there. So this was supposed to be a 3-week trip, but after the first week, I went hermit mode. I decided I'm going to escape this trap and study 24/7 until I figure out a way out. I needed to figure out what I was missing. Books were the first place I went to. I simply Googled what books will help me master money. And the first few I found was Rich Dad, Poor Dad and The Richest Man in Babylon. They were great, very good, but a little bit too vague. They didn't quite give me the answers I wanted, and I already had that mindset shift where I wasn't really demonizing money and I was always looking for opportunities, and I understood the basics That's how I was able to keep making money and attract something towards me. But then I stumbled across The Intelligent Investor. This book changed my life. I read it cover to cover and obsessed over genius investors like Warren Buffett. This was what I had been looking for, something I can scale, something that would give me true freedom. My money would start making me more money. Before this book, I thought the only way to do that was in property, and obviously I couldn't afford to buy most properties. I kept going down this rabbit hole. That's when I found the best investing book I've ever read, A Random Walk Down Wall Street. With that book, I formulated my plan to become a millionaire guaranteed, and this gave me my second huge mindset shift. All this time I had made money, but had no assets. I understood property, but that was out of the realm of possibility for me. So what was my plan to become a millionaire? Do whatever I wanted as long as I could put $500 a month into an index stock portfolio. I was guaranteed to become a millionaire. No matter what, I knew I was able to save $500 a month. This was a very realistic, very achievable goal. And as long as I had the mental discipline to stick to my plan, I was almost guaranteed to become a millionaire. But that wasn't exactly the mindset shift. The mindset shift was this weight lifted off of my shoulders. I knew I was going somewhere. The anxiety that I would never ever make it in any way had disappeared, and now I was free to take risks. Now, nothing comes free in this world, and there was one big problem with this plan. It took 36 years. Now, I'm patient and I was happy to wait, but ideally, I'd like to make it faster. So I had to figure out how to do this faster. I stopped traveling for the most part. My days consisted of working out, working, maybe going out once a week to see friends, and unfortunately a fair bit of video games. Then late 2016, a friend told me about Ethereum. He told me his bank was about to join something called the Ethereum Enterprise Alliance and that this was blowing up. It was going to be the future, and it's pretty much the new internet. The first mindset shift I got at university meant that my money radar, my opportunity radar was going off. The second mindset shift meant that I could afford to comfortably take the risk here. Also, my obsession with investing really paid off because I'd studied every previous bubble. I knew about the tulip bubble, I knew about the South Sea bubble, I knew about the internet bubble and several other ones before that. So when I heard the words new internet, I could not afford to not take this risk. I went home, did my research, took a deep breath, and invested $500 in Ethereum a few days later. I knew this was speculation. However, this was deliberate speculation. And I believe my edge was that my friend was a developer and understood this stuff better than the average person. He also worked at a bank that was about to join the Ethereum Enterprise Alliance that most people did not know about. And then it happened, a feeling I'm sure everyone in crypto is familiar with. Within a few days, my investment was up over 10%. I had made $50 or $60 from my 500. Now, remember, I'm in the stock market chasing 8% a year, and I just made 10% in a few days. I don't think in dollars, I think in percentages, and I understand the power of compounding, so this was mind-blowing for me. Everything told me to explore this opportunity to the best of my abilities. I was ready to go all in, not financially, because nothing was going to disrupt my guaranteed $1 million plan, but it was time to spend all my time on this. I started by researching as much as I could on the internet. Then I arranged meetings with friends I had who I thought would be able to help me. I had a friend who was working at a bank and I wanted to learn how the bank trades and how they make money. Then I also had another friend who traded Forex before successfully and had a meeting with him as well. After both my meetings, I realized that technical analysis might be a smart place to look. So my plan now came together. I understood investing reasonably well. My goal was to outperform the market. BTC is the biggest asset and comprised of most of the market back then, so my options were hold BTC or try and outperform BTC. So I made a portfolio consisting of, at the time, 60 to 70% BTC, and then the rest of the portfolio was Litecoin and Ethereum, hugely because this was all that was available on Coinbase. This portfolio would just hold the crypto and rebalance. That meant if Litecoin went up loads, I'd sell it and buy Ethereum and Bitcoin. If Bitcoin went down loads, I'd sell Ethereum and Litecoin and buy more Bitcoin. And all I had to do was outperform Bitcoin. The rest of my time would then be spent learning technical analysis. So my base theory was that I'm early to a bubble. And I want to maximize this and be able to get out with as much money as possible before it collapses. I have my guaranteed $1 million plan, so I can afford to lose everything I put into this. My goal was to take this initial $500 as far as I could. I continued my rebalancing strategy for a little while, and before I knew it, my $500 had changed into $5,000. The most valuable thing I had here was the ability to keep a level head. Mathematics had told me that if this kept up, I'd be richer than Warren Buffett in no time, and that was not happening. So I was not a genius. I just spotted the opportunity and happened to get into this bubble early, and now I needed to capitalize. While my passive portfolio took care of itself, I kept studying. I discovered alternate exchanges. I can't even remember the names anymore. Bit, insert any name in front of it. There was Poloniex, there was Bitfinex, and I found these through a selection of level-headed influencers I'd managed to find online that I was following. I avoided obvious shillers where I could, people who seemed disingenuous, and probably my favorite of the time was Peter Saddington. His content helped me a lot. Absolute legend, famous at the time for buying a Lamborghini with Bitcoin. But he put a ton of work into putting out amazing educational content. And actually it was a huge influence for me getting into social media because I wanted to give back just like he'd managed to help me during those times. But yeah, so I was leveling up my trading skills, and then I discovered ant shares. This interesting sounding coin was being talked about as the Chinese Ethereum. The same radar went off again. This sounded great. Bubbles, they're not real. They're just stories and humans going crazy and irrational. And this was a great story. So I was ready to make my second big bet. I've already made more than my initial, and I decided to put 50% of my portfolio into ant shares at the time. This was a big bet. I played around with some other altcoins. Within a few months, mainly thanks to ant shares, I was up almost 20x. I wasn't too far off $100,000. Also, I wasn't just buying random coins. I was still learning to trade, and I was looking for every money-making opportunity I could. I ended up finding a Korean friend on Reddit. Him and I set up an arbitrage opportunity. Because of the price discrepancy between the exchange there and the non-Korean exchanges, we were able to print thousands of dollars every single week. It was ludicrous. This is probably the most ridiculous money-making opportunity that has ever come my way, where all the money I made from this went straight back into crypto. Then a little later on, I think I may have the timeline slightly confused, the Bitcoin Cash airdrop came, and that was another huge win because I was holding a decent amount of Bitcoin. At this point, my portfolio was over $200,000. I was now getting pretty confident with my trading, so I decided to separate out $10,000 just for day trading, and then the rest of my portfolio would continue this passive investing / swing trading where I just try and outperform BTC by shifting in and out of altcoins. Now at this point I sat down and had to make a pretty big decision because I'd made a lot of money, $200,000, but it wasn't really going to change my life in any way. It would only knock a few years off my guaranteed $1 million plan. And this may have been greed, but it really didn't seem at that point that the market was cooling down even remotely. It had not crashed once. And I was happy for that 200,000 to even go 50%. So if it went down to 100,000, I was ready to exit, take my win, and accept that 100K as lost. So I stayed in the market, and that's when the next big opportunity came. The biggest one of them all. ICX. Again, thanks to Peter Saddington, I heard about this earlier than most other people, and this one really helped me win future bull markets as well, because it taught me a lot. At the time, I didn't know this was narrative trading, but every single thing I'd seen in that bull market, every trade I'd won or lost, led me to believe that this coin would pump to Valhalla and beyond. Every influencer was talking. It was the next Asian Ethereum. After China and Japan, the next biggest name was Korea. It had huge partnership. There was rumors of a Samsung partnership. It had the Ethereum killer narrative. It had eventually every influencer talking about it. There was not one thing that made a coin pump that this did not have at the time. This was the highest probability play I had found the entire bull market. I got into the ICO, not the influencer one, a public one. I had no social media at the time or network or access to these sorts of things. Then the ICO alone, within a few days of launching, made me 20 to 40K. I can't even remember exactly how much, but it was probably the most money I'd ever made in one day at the time. I then put 50% of my portfolio initially into it, and it got up to 75% of my portfolio. This was a gamble, but it was the accumulation of all the knowledge I had gained that entire bull market. I rode that to a peak of $1.2 million. I remember I was actually in Disneyland with my girlfriend, frantically trading and on my phone, not enjoying it one bit when this was happening. I'm sure my girlfriend was really happy with me at the time. And yeah, when it went over $1 million, and it went from $1 million to 1.2 very quickly, that was it. That was my cash out point. I set my total crypto exposure down to 30% and started selling across the board. It took me a little while because there was a little bit of lingering greed there. And by the end of it, I did end up losing about $400,000 of that. So my net worth by the end was about, say, $800,000. But that really didn't bother me at all. I always viewed this from the perspective of we are in a huge bubble. Until I cash out, this is fairy dust.
Fairy dust. It doesn't exist. It's never landed. It is no matter. It's not on the elemental chart. It's not fucking real. Right? All right?
And eventually I did. So $500 to 1 mil, or let's say 800K in 1 year. That is my story. So after the 2017 bull market ended, I noticed my favorite influencers, a lot of the people I was following, were still hyper bullish on their favorite coins, despite them dumping to oblivion. And they kept becoming less and less active, despite me, an amateur, looking at the chart and thinking, this is now insanity. The bubble has clearly popped, at least for now. And at this point, I was no longer managing a portfolio trying to outperform Bitcoin. I had my crypto, that was part of my investments. My main focus was trading. I was using the 5 to 15 minute and aggressively scalping all the volatility. Prime trading conditions. I was making hundreds of dollars a day. For me at the time, that was amazing, especially now that the bull market was over. Sometimes I'd even make thousands of dollars in a day, which was mind-blowing. So I was wondering, why have all the influencers disappeared? Why is everyone afraid to share content now? Are they all too scared? Were they just lucky in a bull market? That doesn't make sense. They had so many followers. Well, if they're not going to do it, I'll do it. So I started sharing my trades. For a few months, all I did was share every single trade I took in real time. In the first month, I turned a 30K portfolio into about 45K, which again, that's $500 a day. That was absolutely spectacular for me. And people started to follow me and really enjoy the content because, well, I hadn't disappeared when everyone else had. And that's how my journey started in social media. I was actually forged in the fires of the bear market. Trading was lonely, I shared what I was doing, and this all sort of just happened. Then, being inspired by awesome people who I'd learnt from for free, I wanted to pay it forward and started sharing a bit of educational content, teaching people how I was trading, how I was making money, and what I was doing. I've been doing it for 6 years now and have quite an impressive collection of free resources that you can use to learn from as well. I'll link in the description below, and that's it. Thanks for listening.